Damn it, I lost. I guess that's the end of a game. Or is it? Every video game ever produced is an entry into a much larger, more dangerous game.
And that's showbiz, kid.
There's a thriving gaming market in Asia. That shows. From Nintendo, Sony, Nexon, Tencent Gaming, East Asian publishers represent 6 of the top 10 most lucrative game franchises in the world. That's not to say that Asian games are only produced in East Asia. Indonesia, the Philippines, India, Thailand, all of these have a long history of game development, but mostly as outsourcing studios for foreign publishers. That is a lucrative business for some, but the real money in media comes from owning large multimedia franchises, cartoons selling games, and then selling plushies. Now there's an act that we can sell. That's exactly what some game developers in Bangladesh are eyeing. From Tech Asia, I'm Alfie. Let me restart.
Game begin.
What does it take to make a game? It depends. What kind of game do you want? Games, like most things, work on a spectrum. AAA games are the largest games there are. They're the most graphically impressive, the most mainstream games out there. You might have heard of Pokemon, the highest grossing franchise of all time, or mom and pop AAA games like Call of Duty or Yahoo! It's me! Hundreds, thousands of people work on them for years at a time, and they can cost up to hundreds of millions of dollars to produce. It just works. I don't know about your budget, but that's not exactly attainable for an emerging publisher. Let's look at the other end of the scale. Indie games. They are more niche, less visually impressive works spearheaded by small or solo teams. These go from Undertale, Super Meat Boy to Minecraft. The smaller team doesn't make them less impactful. As you might know, Minecraft is the best-selling video game of all time, though it's vastly outgrown its indie roots. And being an indie developer has never been easier. Tools that would have cost millions of dollars to develop even 10 years ago are now accessible online, mostly for free.
And boom, in a couple of seconds, it has decorated the entire...
So, if the tools are free, wouldn't that make it even easier for publishers in lower cost of living countries like Bangladesh to succeed? Well, game development is about more than just labor costs. To make sense of all of this, here's Mehnaz Irtika from ANN's The Daily Star.
At Bengali investors, especially the angel investors, are pretty confused when investing into the games, as there are uncertainties of what the audiences will be. There's definitely a lack of resources, and if the educational institutions enabled a much easier pathway to game development, the funneling process for the students to go into the local market would have been so much easier. When Bangladeshi game developers start recruiting, they have to teach all the students and all the people that they're working with from ground zero.
And setting aside education itself, computer science is one of the skills that's most coveted in the world. It's quite difficult for medium-sized publishers to train, find, and retain talent.
There's a lack of local expertise in Bangladesh as there are not enough local publishers. So the game developers eventually have to go to foreign publishers and just they rely on them to publish out the game. There's a lot of local publishers out there, like I've spoken with Naptic Labs, Bangla Puzzle, and so on. That being said, it's not that they're not trying. They're definitely trying, but the international marketing system requires a lot of legal procedures to go through in order for the game to show up in the algorithm.
Localization can be a big burden, from having to re-record voiceover lines, to having to clear rights, or even just rethinking how you display text for a different language. Setting aside all of that, if your game was tailored for local markets, there's no guarantee it'll be successful internationally as well.
There are different teams that work in a whole game development process, from the legal arena to marketing arena to the developers themselves. Although there are developers in the game market right now, there is definitely a shortage of the other two teams mentioned. The gaming industry has more to it than financial gains. It has creative expression, it has skill development related to it.
Games are a form of artistic expression, and from the way that they shape the communities you interact with, to even the way that you look at the world, it's really valuable to have games that represent your culture, both as a member of that culture individually, being able to see yourself in that, and also for all the members of the gaming community who are able to experience and discover new things. There are many things that can be done to boost Bangladesh's game industry, from what Mehnaz was talking about in terms of education, to government subsidies, or even individually led projects like game jams.
And with a proactive measure from the ICT department in the funding and investments and the proper resources, putting in their efforts in the local and homegrown games that are currently being made as fan favorites. But the skills definitely need to be cultivated at a very early age, definitely before they graduate, because they need to be optimized with right skills to get into the local gaming sector of our country.
It's going to be a challenging road for these Bengali developers, but as Mehnaz said, there are plenty of companies trying to break through. And you never know, maybe the next Flappy Bird, Minecraft, or BattleBits could come from Bangladesh. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me on.
That's the end of our raid together for this week. If you're interested in Mehnaz's article, it's linked in the description or right around here. If you're interested in learning more about Bangladesh's game industry, we've got a piece coming in the next couple of weeks talking about how Bangladesh is at the forefront of a gaming revolution. Now, it's not what you're thinking. It's not virtual reality, augmented reality, or NFTs, if anyone believes that. Here's a hint. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to go and wreck some chumps at Tetris. Take care.